Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my top 2022 eyeshadow palettes, most used, favorite, just the ones that I've reached for the most. There's one that's kind of newer and I added that more as an extra, but I think it has become a favorite really quickly and it's definitely worth being in here. So let's get started. I definitely have been kind of dreading this video just because I thought it would be so hard to pick between the eyeshadow palettes of this year. But once I started getting my little paws into my eyeshadow collection, it really was quite easy to pick the ones that I have reached for a lot. I have used a lot of one and done eyeshadows or like the potted single eyeshadows. I have not included those in this video, but I think looking back to 2022, I really have reached for more simpler eye look, kind of one and done. And so I think it was quite easy to determine which ones were my favorite. So let's start with one that I think it's no surprise. I have talked about this eyeshadow palette for a very long time, and that is the Victoria Beckham. This is the Tweed eyeshadow palette. It is tiny and it is a paint to open. I really don't like the opening and closure of all the Victoria Beckham packaging. I know a lot of people seem to love it, but for me it's just I have to almost dig my nail in there to open it. However, the overall packaging is nice. So this is the color story of the Tweed palette, and you know, it looks kind of boring. It looks maybe a little intimidating with this red here, but truly I have reached for this palette as my daily palette, probably mainly for this brown right here. I find it very neutral and beautiful as an eyeshadow crease, and kind of like that everyday color. Look at that. That is a very heavy swatch, but it blends in so easily. It can become very light in the crease, kind of like this, and I just reach for it so much. Also, the next brown is incredible. I think it's also the formula that I just love so much, and it's everyday palette. Even this red, if I want to warm up the look just a little bit, I add a little bit of this red and it just becomes a little bit warmer. It just gives a little bit of something. And this purpley eggplant color, I think it's perfect for just deepening out the look, for the lash line. And it's right here. It's not too purpley. These swatch awful, by the way, but they are so beautiful, so easy to use. Again, I have reached for this over and over and over again, and I feel like I will eventually hit pan on this because it's one of my go-to eyeshadow palettes. I've also really been enjoying smaller eyeshadow palettes. The really big ones, there's just too much. I don't have time to do a ton of eyeshadow. So I've reached for that one probably the most, as well as the next one that I'm going to talk about, which is the Tom Ford Smoky Eyes. I have sang its praises also a lot. I mean, I think I discovered it this year. I'm pretty sure it was like early February when I discovered it, and it looks so very boring, and it kind of is, but it's very sophisticated. It's very soft on the eyes. It's almost creamy. Even though all these are mattes, there is this sheen to them that makes it so incredibly unique. I love the colors. I love the way these blend into my skin. And can you see that? Like, that is a sheen to these eyeshadows, and they're called the Creme eye color quad creme, and it is that weird consistency that it's like a cream but it's powder. I love this. I love the colors. I love the undertones. They look similar, but on the eyes they really pop. This one and this one, they're not super different, but I like having them both because this definitely deepens out the look and it almost gives me a little bit more of that warmth, and this is more of a crease color for me. But Absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. You guys have seen me use it over and over and over again, and I didn't expect this to be such a huge hit in my collection just because it looked kind of boring, kind of muted, but somehow it is wonderful. I absolutely adore this palette, and I'm sure it will be right here for very long time. Moving on to none other than Pat McGrath. This is the Pat McGrath Mothership 10. This has stolen my heart. This is my favorite Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette. I love everything about this. I love the toppers. I love this super special shade. It just catches the eyes. Every time I wear it, somebody asks me what's on my eyes. I even like the simple, more metallic colors. Look at that one. And this brown right here, I find it to be the most flattering bronzy color. And then the shimmers, they're very chunky, but beautiful. Like, they don't fall everywhere. They're not super colorful. They have a shift to it. So look at those. They're all softer colors, like a brown, a more pinky color, and then a lavender. But they just show up so beautiful on the eye. It is, again, like, it's not that super soft shimmer that's barely there. These are punchy, but so incredible. These are the kind of shimmers that I reach for if I want an impact. I even like the browns. I love everything about this palette. I like that it's not too colorful, because just in general, I'm not somebody that will use a ton of color. Here and there, yes, as an exception. But overall, I reach for more basic colors with texture. I love texture. And I find this palette to be the most friendly for me, the most everyday palette from the Pat McGrath that I have. I have a lot of them. I think I have all of them except one of the big mothership, and they're all just a little bit too colorful for me, and I don't see myself reaching for certain brighter shades. But this one, this is me. I love the undertones, I love the textures, and I find it absolutely gorgeous. This was definitely a huge hit for me this year. I know there's so many contradicting opinions, and that is perfectly fine. Some people find it boring and kind of repetitive. For me, it is chef's kiss. The next eyeshadow palette, it has also been released this year, and it has been, again, a huge surprise and kind of love at first sight, and that is the Natasha Denona Dream palette. This is definitely a little bit more colorful, or a little bit more playful, but I think this is my favorite out of the Natasha Denona palettes, except the Biba palette. This right here, I mean, I don't think nothing will beat this one or the gold one. Those two will always be my collection, will always be favorites. And I almost put this one over the Dream palette just because I think I used it maybe a little bit more, but I would reach for like certain mattes from this one, not the whole palette. But this one, it really has been such a good release that I thought it was worth putting it here, because I love this eyeshadow palette. I love that you have some purple, some more neutral, some warm tones. I love the shimmers in these palettes as well. This color Babies right here is so gorgeous. Also, Vision right here has that beautiful shift. And I don't know, there's something about this palette that I find so easy to use, user-friendly. You can make an everyday look, or you can amp it up. I really like the looks I created with this palette, and I found it easy to work with. I like that you have a black in there. I just love this palette. I think it was a great release, and overall, like, Natasha Denona releases collection, and this collection was my favorite. I loved the lip trio that I bought from them. I also loved the face palette, the blush, and the two highlighters. I thought it was brilliant. And so yeah, I really fell in love with this eyeshadow palette. Used it quite a bit. Even for it to be this colorful and for me to reach for it is a big thing. So yes, this had to be in here because it was released. When was it released? Like 4 months ago, maybe maybe more, maybe less. I am literally in a different world time-wise. I don't even know what day it is, but I have reached for it and I found it a very good release. Now I have 3 eyeshadow palettes here that I love, and I know I was trying to stick with the top 5, but I had a hard time sticking or choosing one of these 3 to be on the top 5, just because one, I've had it for a longer time and I've reached for it. One is very new, like a month or 2, and then one is a classic that I discovered this year that I've kind of reached for. I'm just gonna start with that. This is the Dior Cashmere, soft cashmere, and I almost didn't want to put this one in here at all. It was kind of last minute. Let me just mention that one. Easy, basic, great quality. This is the first time I'm trying Dior eyeshadows. Like I have the Backstage, this one, the green one. Actually, this is what I have on my eyes right now. But this was my first Dior encounter eyeshadow, and I found the formula really good. The toppers, or like the shimmers, were extremely creamy. But this, you know, this is kind of like a special mention. This, I wouldn't say it's my top 5 or top favorite, just because it's newer. I haven't used it a ton, but I do like that formula. But the next one is from Vanity Makeup, and even though I haven't spoken about this palette in, you know, a while, I have reached for this a lot. I find this palette to be so beautiful, so everyday friendly. You can amp it up. You can just do whatever you want. I like that you have this dark shimmery shade that put on top of this black. It's absolutely gorgeous. The shimmers are like different textures, but there's some toppers, there's some creamier, there's straight up shimmer. And ooh, I love, love, love this eyeshadow palette. I think it's a great staple in everybody's collection. It is pricey. I mean, Pat McGrath is pricey, but you do get sales with Pat McGrath. But this one, I think it runs around $95. And I've seen sales here and there, like, oh, 15% off or 20% off. But truly, it is one of those palettes that if you have this in your collection, you're kind of covered in the eyeshadow department, because you have some neutral, some definitely warm, a little bit of like smokier looks, and it's just gorgeous. You have this more of a cool tone topper that can change the look, and I think this is such a good release. Did I discover this year? I think it was last year, but it still stayed in my top drawer. I reached for it quite a lot, but I've noticed that I haven't spoken about this just in my videos, just because I've had so many new releases. But this truly is a wonderful palette, and it had to be in my top 5. So these were my top 5 eyeshadow palettes. Dior one doesn't count. I just kind of wanted to mention that I've just started discovering the eyeshadow palettes from Dior. But the one that I kind of want to put in here, and I find it a very beautiful, I just discovered it in the past, I think, 2 months, and it was hard to put it as my most used in 2022 because I really haven't had it for that long. But I know myself that this will become a favorite next year, and that is the Makeup by Mario new eyeshadow palette. This is the Ethereal Eyes, and I love this palette. I have done a review on this one, and I have reached for it a lot just because the colors, the toppers are so beautiful. These are like softer toppers. They have an impact, but they're softer. They're not like the Pat McGrath that are so intense, like you will have shiny eyes. These are more of those toppers that when the light catches your eyelid, it just sparkles and it has a beautiful ethereal look. I find them absolutely gorgeous and more elegant, I would say, than the Pat McGrath. I also like all the mattes. They build up really nice. I like the undertone. I've actually used the smokier section right here the most out of all of them, which I was surprised, just because this color right here, this kind of taupey. It has a shift of green in there. It's so gorgeous on top of these browns. So good. I know I will reach for this so much more this coming year because these are my colors. It's easy, fast, just wonderful palette. And I thought it was worth mentioning because to me, Makeup by Mario has been releasing so many good products. I'm wearing his foundation right now, the Makeup by Mario foundation, loving it. His bronzer, I just love this brand so much. I'm planning to do a full face of Makeup by Mario in the coming weeks because I find this brand to be so consistent, and the more products they bring out, the better it gets. I love all their lip products, just wonderful. And this palette is no exception. It had to be in this video. So those are the palettes that I've been reaching for a lot in 2022. You know, there were so many. Like, I love this Anastasia one. Obviously, it's sitting here on my desk because it's so beautiful. But if I had to pick, you know, favorite, most used palettes, I think these are the ones that deserve that award. I would love to hear your favorite palettes. I am so curious to see what people reach for over and over again because, you know, this Tom Ford is not exciting, but it's just what I wear. It's the truth. It's what I always reach for. So I would love to hear your thoughts on your favorite eyeshadow palettes. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, like this video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.